Hello and welcome to another episode of Behind the Brief, the podcast where we go beyond the finished work and dig into the thinking, the people, and the truth that sits inside every great creative work. I'm your host today. My name is Anup Verma, and if you have watched episode 1, you already know what this show is really about. It's about the process, the conversation, and everything that happens before design even begins. Now, episode 2, I genuinely mean this, feels very special to me. My guest today has spent nearly 3 decades designing for India, not just for brands and logos, but for spaces, system, and symbols that millions of people experience every day, even without realizing it. He has worked at the scale of a nation and yet somehow kept the soul of a craftsman through all of it. So, before I bring him in, if you are enjoying the show, please do like, follow, subscribe, and leave your comment. It truly means a lot to us. Now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, please join me in welcoming a designer I would simply describe in 4 words: dare to be authentic. Anthony Lopez, founder and chief creative director of Lopez Design at New Delhi. He has built practices that is unmistakably Indian, globally recognized, and rooted in one simple belief that authenticity is not just a style, it is a strategy. His work includes the wayfinding and signages for Kartavya Path, the New Parliament, brand identities for Ayushman Bharat, Bihar Museum, VIP, Nestaway, and lot of other brands. If you have walked through the Rajpath, you have seen his work, you just didn't know that it was done by Anthony. As an NID alumnus, Anthony has also spent years expanding what design means in a national context through the Lopez Design Forum, through remarkable collaboration, and through a studio culture that is intentional as the work it produces. Today we go behind the brief to understand what nearly 30 years of designing for India has truly taught him. Thank you so much, Anthony, once again. You agreed to be a part of this podcast. Basically, we have started this podcast to take a deep dive into the making of the big brand, the campaign, who all are the people involved, what kind of effort goes in, what kind of processes are there, how thought comes. That's the main objective. That's how we started this podcast. So my first question to you, Anthony, is that you started your career in 1997, as per my research, what I went through. And when you started your career, designing as a discipline was a very courageous step. No parent would allow that you take your career into designing domain, but you took that step, and it was I'm sure it took either courage, tremendous courage, or a bit amount of madness, which helped you to get into this design domain. What was it, and what were those early days like?
Firstly, Anup, thank you so much for inviting me. So it's my privilege and my duty to be doing this podcast with you. And also, you've been a good friend of Lopez and good friend of the industry.
Thank you so much.
And I think that's a wonderful thing, what you're doing besides selling papers.
Yeah.
In context to the year you mentioned, that's the year presumably we started Lopez Design, right? And my career as a designer started, I think, 7 years before that, and that's another story.
Yeah.
But I'll concentrate on my active practice in design as Lopez, right? So I still vividly remember that I went to this photography studio in a basement to meet my good old friend Manpreet Singh Soki. And while I was running a factory for another friend of mine into home furnishings, so I was running a factory.
Oh wow.
Yeah. and and when I went to the basement and I met Manpreet, Manpreet was going through a sort of a brochure, a dummy of a brochure, you know. He's saying, and he was telling me like, I've got to shoot this in the coming week, right?
Right.
And then I said, you know, hey, can you show it to me, right? In that sense. And he said, yes, here, look at it. And one word, basically, I looked at the whole document and I said, hey, I can do better than this, right? And he said, huh? Then the client is coming in 15 minutes. Why don't you tell him? I said, I'm most happy to talk to him in that sense. And in 15 minutes or so, the client walked in, a young gentleman, you know, and Manpreet introduced us. And the same thing happened. I told him, I can do better than this. And shockingly, he said, then you do it.
Oh, wow.
And this guy turned out to be the youngest son of SRF Industries and the Bharat Rams, you know, and the well-known family, very well-established family. And he turned out to be the Bharat Ram's son. And there it is that I got landed on my first project where I said, now let me do this, right? In that sense. At that time, I had not decided to set up Lopez, but I said, hey, I came back to my roots in design and I called in an old colleague of mine, Mohan, and we started working on this brochure. To cut a long story short, I mean, we started working on the details in as a photography led, right? And the company which we were designing a corporate brochure for was SRF Limited, and it's a B2B business, and it was into raw products, right? So polymer chips, gases, Indian gases, you know, and things like that. So very, very uninteresting products. You know, and these were all products which were used in the industry to create products for use, right? In that sense. And so we struggled quite a bit to say that how can these products get a soul? उसको आत्मा कैसे मिल सकती है? How can it get a life, right? In that sense, and that's why the whole process came out, and then we create a concept, and when we started the shooting, and this is very important, that what I found in my friend Manpreet, who was a great photographer, that he and I believed in the same aspect, and the aspect was God lies in detail, right? And everybody understands the statement God lies in detail, but what it takes to deliver detail is the story which or the journey which Manpreet and I took in terms of shooting. So each shot, besides the preparation what we did, we would take 5 days to take one shot on a large format camera, 5x4 film camera, right? In that sense. And in those days we didn't have Photoshop, right? So we had to do everything on camera. And perfectly so.
True.
Right? The scanners would this thing, and little you could do sign magenta changes, and then it goes into print. And that was one of the most memorable projects which I did as far as starting off my career, and that's what gave me the confidence to say, hey, now Lopez Design is happening, right? There's a long story of why Lopez, name Lopez, and if you ask me that, then I'll answer that. But when the brochure came in front of my client, then they were shocked out of the wits. He said, this is beyond my expectations. This is the words of Karthik, right? This is beyond my expectation. And for me, that was not a surprise, because that's the level at which we go to produce something which is beyond somebody's expectations, right? And here the expectation is of the commissioner, somebody who has spent a lot of money, effort, time and energy into creating this product. And it goes beyond their expectation. And when that happens, magic happens. Yeah.
Fantastic. So it happened accidentally, but I have a very interesting question for you on this. Generally, when young boys or girls, they start their career, their expectation is to have a very glamour product to work with. It was by accidentally it happened with you, but it was an industrial product. Was it very exciting for you when you did this?
I think it's about how you treat. It's very foundational in terms of how you can treat your question in context to how you frame things for yourself, that no matter what it is exciting to solve for. right?
Yeah.
And the excitement lies in how you solve it and the process of solving and the process of delivering that solve, right? And if you get that right, then every piece of work is enjoyable. It so happened that it was that particular product.
Okay.
And thereby any challenge could come up to you from a solve perspective, and you could be doing great about it. But if you are going to judge the problem or the outcome based on what excites you, just purely based on that, or the definition of great work or excitement work which excites people, then I think that's your first step of failure. So working with Manpreet was great because he was a man of precision, right? Both of us shared one single conviction, that God lies in detail. And we would spend endless hours to get it right. Nothing but getting right. And I think that endurance to knowing that it is right and getting it right is the challenge which we have today, right? So that's where. And that right is basically the absolute truth in a shot or in the work you do or anything else, right?
So you did the designing of wayfinding and the signages of Kartavya Path and the new parliament. And what I find, Anthony, here is that this project was very massy. Yeah, it was for the public. It was for the nation. It was not for the brand or a personality. It was for the nation. I really want to know that how does your process changes here? How did it change here?
I'll start with a different perspective. So first of all, it was a wayfinding project, right? And so when we say wayfinding, it's a very dry subject.
Yeah.
You have to show directions, what is where, etc.
Yeah.
Nothing else, right? But for us, the way we frame wayfinding is about making people feel comfortable, right? Of where they are, where they have arrived, right? And it actually gives them directions in terms of how to frame their context from there onwards, right? In that sense.
Yeah.
It is about if they are searching for something, they can find it very easily,
Yes.
right? And thereby it reflects the space which they are in. Right? And here, I think and thereby the whole framing of wayfinding in this case
Correct.
becomes the act of governance. It's
Yes.
about how you govern that space in a certain manner, right? And this thing.
Absolutely.
And I think that's where the opportunity lies as far as what lens and what perspectives do we see, say, an opportunity like this, right? Which is the central vista, which is the center of power,
Yes.
which is the center of India in every notable, way in that sense, right?
True.
And when you start seeing things in that fashion, you start seeing what can I do to enhance this entire concept of making people feel of where they belong, right? In that sense. So that's where the opportunity lies.
So I guess you had a dual challenge. One was to put a design there, and also, as you rightly said, it was more of a governance, right? So meeting these two challenging objective would have put you on a big test, I guess.
So when we ask ourselves this question as designers of why do people come to this central vista, and now it's called the Kartavya Path, right?
Yes, yes.
And we realize that this is where they come to find themselves. कि हम कौन हैं, and in that basically the realization of the being happens through that particular act, and the act of finding that answer, associating with it and taking pride in it.
Right.
Because it is a symbolic piece. Of course, there is function happening there, and लोग दूर दूर से आते हैं,
Right.
और लाखों में आते हैं,
हाँ जी.
रोज के रोज आते हैं,
बिल्कुल.
and each person has a fulfillment which happens when they come and touch that place.
हाँ जी.
And that touch is not only the physical touch, but touch in many, many ways.
Yes, yes.
Right? And thereby, as a wayfinding project, what is that I can do to enhance that feel and give it that much more gravitas, which the expectancy is there, because it is history of India.
Right.
It is everything of India, which is embedded in that space.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? and thereby it becomes duty bound for us to be doing, and duty bound for us to be doing, to be going beyond the brief, if I may say that. Right?
And you also created a special typeface also for that.
Yes, we did not create a special typeface, but we modified a typeface, November.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
which I think I've forgotten the name of the studio, but Peter Balek's studio in Netherlands had produced the November typeface.
Okay.
And the beauty about the November typeface that they also had a Devanagari script, and they have many other scripts along with that typeface. But November typeface is specifically designed for wayfinding signage.
I see.
Right.
Okay.
So that means it has got higher legibility, readability, all those things, right? And the well-formed letters, counterforms, and all those things, technical things. But what we did with the opportunity we got in terms of modifying the font, we wanted to bring it more closer to the Devanagari script.
Okay.
Right. And we found, I strongly feel that India needs to speak through its own voice.
Absolutely.
And the script is our voice, right, in that sense.
Super.
And so what we did was we had an opportunity to make some minor changes in the Devanagari script, which became more Hindi, because it was a foreign lens which created that script, again borrowing from the Indian lens. But and then we brought that aspect into the Roman script also,
Right.
which is the English script, right, in that sense. And that brought it closer to us. Of who we are as Indians and India, right, in a larger subject. So it's a very fine detail which we brought in, and you should go and look at the case study, which basically made it us, and that's what the thing, and that's a good example. One of the examples of how we went into a certain type of detailing,
Right.
and while we could have picked up the font November and put it there because it was anyway working, right. And the other thing about the font is that it's called variable font. That means you can change the thickness of the font.
Okay.
But when we pick up a 24 point say Roman type and a 24 point Hindi type, and you put it there, they will never match in weight.
Okay.
Right. They will not match in weight and size, right, in that sense. So that's where the conflict lies, and we worked very hard with Peter Balek to get that right. In context, to see that the Hindi script and the Roman script were well balanced. So again, going back to the God lies in detail concept, right? That you have to go very fine details in order to deliver, in order to serve its audience. It is one of the few signage systems which we think at national scale, or a large scale, where it is inclusive in nature, right? So it has got Braille, it's got a map in Braille. Every pole along the Kartavya Path, has got the map front and back. So no matter where you land up in the Kartavya Path, you are immediately got an access to the map. Right, and then front to back, that means you are facing the Rashtrapati Bhavan or the India Gate, right, in that sense. And so the whole map becomes ulta. And so an uneducated person, a person with less understanding of maps, will still make sense of it. So if you get into detail, you'll understand about how that thing works, right? All the maps have got tactility attached to it, right?
So that one can feel it.
One can feel it, and that's the feel factor which we bring in very subtly there. All the poles have got a pattern on it of a certain kind, which reflects in a certain manner.
So next time when I am going there, I am going to feel each and everything. अभी तो हम टूरिस्ट की तरह जाते थे, हमें अच्छा लगता था. अभी ये हमें पता नहीं था कि इसके अंदर इतनी डिटेलिंग भी गई है. So this is what the behind the brief all about.
Yeah, but I think now you are conscious of it, and you'll go and consciously observe it.
Yeah.
But I think that if everything around us had that level of detail, and I think detail is not necessary that every time you have to go micro detailing, but all those details inform you as a person collectively. So it's not the signage in isolation which gives you a feeling of awesomeness of India. It's everything around it. But the signage adds that value.
True.
And signage is one thing which you can see it from far, and you can come very close, because the map brings you extremely close. And when you come extremely close, you see the beauty of that map. You see the details.
Correct.
And as a common person, you may not be able to appreciate the detail, but it gives you that feeling, right? And it gives you that sense of connect, which is the powerful aspect, right?
Wonderful. So I'll request my audience to, when they are going next time, when they are going to Kartavya Path, you must see the minute detail that has gone behind making all those signages and wayfinding.
I think when we got this project, and we got this project through the architect, Abimal Patel and his firm HCP, we had great questions in our mind. Why Lopez? Why should Lopez do this? And that's the time when Central Vista as a project was covered under a lot of controversy.
You asked this question to yourself?
Yes.
Wow.
And it was a yes and no, which we had to choose whether we should do it or not, right, in that sense.
Interesting.
And I brought in my whole team together, and we went for it, But one of the things which questioned me a lot was that area was built by a colonial power, right? It was built by the Britishers. And everything about that place reeks of the colonial power. It just reminds us of that power which was ruling us for 200 years, right? In that sense. And so as a designer and as an Indian, I feel that I have to add something into that through the exercise I've got. And my exercise was very small, very restrictive. पोल तो खड़ा करना है. And in that context,
लगता था
उसमें कौन सी बड़ी बात है? वो तो पहला सवाल होता है. इसमें कौन सी बड़ी बात है? इसमें इतना टाइम क्यों लगा रहे हो आप? इसमें पैसे क्यों ले रहे हो भैया? पोल तो लगाना है. And I think that is something which really got my goat in context to how to bring India forward in a space which cannot be erased, because we can never erase our history.
Absolutely, yeah.
हम उसको निकाल नहीं सकते. वो सच्चाई है हमारे बारे में, right? पर इसके ऊपर में हम आगे कैसे बढ़ सकते हैं? How can we move ahead? And what are the signs and symbols and acts we will do in order to do that? Not dogmatically, but in a very refined manner.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
And that brings us to the concept of what we did with that pole.
Interesting.
Right? Besides the detail which we speak about, right? हमने किया क्या उसके साथ? या हमने किया क्या? Forget the pole. अगर इस दृश्य हमारे मन में आ गई है, this vision has come into mind that we have to do something, and how do we solve for it, right? And we could have done anything on that pole, because it was the inspirations we got was the light poles which are there with the British era, light poles which are there at the Kartavya Path, right? In that sense. And that gives an opportunity that we can do a decoration on it, which will enhance the pole, the wayfinding pole, right? In that sense, as such. And that's where I realized that it could become a very powerful instrument to tell a story, right? A story of India.
Correct.
And that's why we came up with the idea of putting the Dharam Chakra on it.
I see. Oh.
Okay. So all the poles at the Central Vista, at the Kartavya Path, have got the Dharam Chakra on it, right? It's carved inside it, right?
Yes, no, I've seen that, but I'm now, since I know the story, I mean, it's
and what does the Dharam Chakra say to us? कि धर्म पालन करो. इससे बड़ी चीज तो कोई हो ही नहीं सकती.
Yes.
In a sense, forget India. हाँ?
और उस पूरे जोन को आप एक ही मैसेज दे रहे हो.
Yes, exactly. And वो मैसेज हमारे अंदर है. Every Indian knows the Dharam Chakra. I hope so.
Yes, yes.
and has in them. And when they connect with that on the streets, it's a reminder of that this is a place
what you're supposed to
जहाँ धर्म पालन होता है. And at that point of time, it was called Central Vista. Super. And then when the inauguration happened, it was called Kartavya Path. उसका मतलब क्या है? तो वो सब जुड़ गया एक साथ.
Yes, yes.
Huh? But that was not the brief given to us, and not the name was there before it, this thing, right? And maybe it inspired somebody who saw that signage system, because ये 2 दिन पहले ही या 1 दिन पहले ही PM ने डिसाइड किया था कि इसको कर्तव्य पथ बनाना है. नाम.
So आपको पूरा गवर्नमेंट एंड ब्यूरोक्रेसी से पूरा फ्रीडम मिला आपको to play around it?
This is the second time you're asking me a similar question where you're saying, how do you manage to convince your client? how do I manage to convince
this
the
is
highest
government
level,
client.
which is the
government
Prime Minister
client.
himself, right? I'm assuming it's he who took the call. या उसको दिखाया गया होगा कि भाई ये हो रहा है, you know, and he वो सहमत थे उससे, you know, if I'm using the right word.
Yes, सहमत थे.
सहमत थे. It is the entire doing it right business. जब आप सही तरह से सही चीज करते हो और सही तरह से प्रेजेंट करते हो विदाउट एनी फ्लावरी लैंग्वेज टू इट, कि वो सच्चाई से कोई दूर भाग नहीं सकता है, वो अपना ही लेगा,
फिर वो एक्सेप्ट कर ले.
सो देयर वाज एब्सोल्युटली, इट इज वन ऑफ द मोस्ट scary projects for me for various reasons, and also the most smoothest, because when I hit the idea, बस वो तो तीर की तरह जाते रहा और तीर मार के वापस आया.
कितना समय लगा आपको पूरी रिसर्च और एग्जीक्यूशन में तक?
Not much, because it was again, every project comes, all these especially government projects come with a lot of fast track mechanism, which government wants to execute things at the fastest level possible. So we did the first presentation in about 1.5 2 months.
That was quick.
Yeah, and it was an extensive exercise because we had to do a system design for the entire space. So the project was not Central Vista; it was Central Vista, Parliament, Prime Minister's house, Vice President's house, all the institutions there, the secretariats. So we had sort of had to come up with a system design exercise in an initial phase, and then detail out Central Vista first. So it was a massive exercise. The entire team was working day and night to make it happen.
कितना प्राउड फील होता है, कितनी ग्रेटिफिकेशन है आपको at the end of the day?
Massive. I think इस पे there's a lot of feeling of satisfaction, and I think that if you chase this type of satisfaction more than कि कोई इंसान आपको बोल रहा है कि एक शानदार प्रोजेक्ट किया है, you know, I think if you, that satisfaction has to come from inside, that you have done something credible and meaningful and something which is powerful, right, in that sense. And yet it is not something जो ढोल बजाएगा उसके ऊपर. आप समझिए, पोल के ऊपर कोई ढोल नहीं बजाने वाला है, ठीक है. और it is something which is very quiet and subtle, which is there in that place.
ये कोई एक गवर्नमेंट, एक मिनिस्टर, एक ब्यूरोक्रेट को खुश करने की बात नहीं, ये पूरी नेशन को, होल नेशन इज टॉकिंग, whosoever who is interacting with those signages, they're talking about it. They're talking good about it. So I must congratulate you and your team. You have done a wonderful job for that.
नहीं, इस पे मुझे और एक aspect which I want to talk about, and it's very critical aspect for designers to know, and we can talk in detail later on also.
Yes.
The aspect of agency.
हाँ जी.
You know, कि एक तो आपको कोई एजेंसी दिया नहीं जाता है, because you have been brought as a painter, कि उसको सुंदर करो, उसको अच्छा लगाओ, you know, and not as somebody as who'll change the game, or who'll add exponential value to whatever you are doing, right, in that sense. And I think that belief system has to be there inside you very deeply, that you are the agent of change. And that's a critical component. And if you do that, then कोई भी चीज़ आपके सामने आएगा तो आप कुछ ना कुछ डालेंगे उसके अंदर जो वो बदलाव सामने ले आएगा. अब बदलाव जो भी वजह का बदलाव हो, you know, वो बदलाव सामने खड़ा हो जाएगा, you know, because you are thinking honestly with great amount of integrity and truthfulness to solve something so beautifully that it has some value to add.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
So if that belief comes into you, then everything you touch will turn into something. मैं गोल्ड नहीं बोल रहा हूँ, because उसकी उतोल हो जाती है.
And I also think that we must give credit to government also. They thought of involving people like you. Otherwise, as you rightly said, वो किसी पेंटर को दे देते कि भाई पेंट कर दो, सिंबल बना दो, और every 2 years पे वो renovation पे चला जाता. But they involved a team like you. So I mean, I must give credit to government also. They have done a wonderful job.
The architect and the government in this case, because the government has the power to say no if it doesn't understand it correctly, right, in that sense. And so the architect has done a great job in identifying. I mean, everybody intends to do a great job.
Yes,
there's no doubt about it, right? झूठा कोई नहीं है.
Absolutely.
You know? And but the fact is, what do you do with the opportunity given to you is the critical part. That's one thing. And I think the commissioners have to be credited equally every time. Because उन्होंने आपके ऊपर विश्वास किया है.
Yes.
वो सबसे बड़ी चीज़ है कि कोई आपको कुछ दे और विश्वास से दे.
Yes, yes.
You know, और वो जब विश्वास जब आपके सामने आती है तो उसको आप क्या करेंगे? Right? This is all going into a very different sphere of thinking, but but design is all this.
Yes, yes.
Right? The honesty of design is a very important factor about how we conduct ourselves in our business. There's one aspect of Kartavya Path which I'll talk about, which is a very silent and a hidden aspect. There's one aspect of Kartavya Path which I'll talk about, which is a very silent and almost a hidden aspect of the wayfinding project, right? It's the gender neutral icon which we did there, you know.
I read
And it so happened that that there was a mandate, or the design basically had a toilet which was meant to be gender neutral. That means anybody who's uncomfortable with either of the two toilets, you know, could go to that place, right? And because space was a constraint, I think that toilet was also for mothers feeding their children or child or things like that, right? In that sense. And so it was a multi-purpose toilet, but it was meant to be, a gender-neutral toilet. And we searched the world for finding a gender-neutral icon, right? Which we could put there. And we couldn't find a gender-neutral icon.
Is it?
Yes. And which was truly true, which was unbiased, and which was honest to the LGBTQQ plus, right, in that sense. And the many more to be added to it, right, in terms of diversity
on the gender.
And we so most of the symbols were either making fun of these choices which people make for themselves, or a misrepresentation, right, in that sense. And thereby we said, we have to create one, and we created an identity which is neutral in nature, right? And we are so happy that it is been accepted and it's been put there at the central vista. And we are hoping that it will then spread itself from there to the rest of the world, and it is an India offering to the world, right? And I think where we come back from our Indianness, our wide level of acceptance of us and our surroundings and our culture, right, in that sense, versus about how we see the world, because our aspect of diversity in our country is so vast, which no other country in the world has it, right, in that sense. So उस lens हम देख सकते हैं उससे. And thereby I thought that the fact that our studio took it up, we were not commissioned to do the gender neutral icon, right? वो अलग से हमारा contract में था ही नहीं, you know. वो हमने अपने आप उठाया उसको, हमारा मुद्दा बना दिया, हमने study किया, we spoke to various design firms in the world to check, you know, can this become a world icon, and we put it there.
How proud this moment is for us, Anthony, that we really take pride in, offering this solution to the world, thanks to you.
Yeah. No, not thanks to me. It's, I think, thanks to everything which has happened to me in the studio, which has made us this type of people, right? Which is conscious people, people who want to take such responsibilities. We take responsibilities, right? So once a job is given to us, then we'll take care of the entirety of the job, right? And that is where it is in safekeeping as far as
you took this as a very responsible project, and you came up with a solution which is an inspiration for the rest of the world. I guess this is going to be, used by the rest of the world.
I mean, one of the reasons why I said yes to this podcast is, that it's important that we spread this thinking, right?
Very important.
Not this design, the thinking behind the design with everybody as much as possible, because it needs to become popular. The thinking needs to become popular in terms of where the roots of true design lie.
Yeah.
Right? And unless we as designers who can become agents of change do not apply ourselves in this way, there's less influence for us in society for the future, especially for the future.
So that's what even I'm trying to do. I'm trying to extract as much takeaway from you as possible, so that all our young designers, can learn from this.
In context to this project, I think you spoke about very broadly about the wideness of this project and a public project, right? And I think the idea behind a designer making their mark, right? And we use this term making your mark, right? In that sense, is not about leaving your mark.
Acha.
Right? And I think that's very critical to understand, because I think we have been misguided by the fact that we have to leave our mark in every piece of work. And I think that is where we have to understand that our work needs to be invisible. On the Kartavya Path wayfinding signage, there is no Lopez Design written. Nor does it say Lopez Design in any perspective. In the gender neutral sign, it does the same job. It doesn't say Lopez Design.
But वो तो गवर्नमेंट का भी मैंडेट होगा मेरे ख्याल से.
No, besides the mandate, in any of our work, in any of the work which we do, we cannot. It belongs to the authority which has commissioned us.
Okay.
So by right it is theirs, and by right it is not being put into every piece like an art piece, right? So when Picasso sign करता है तो जहाँ पे भी उसका डुप्लीकेट भी बनता है वो साइन होता है उसके पीछे.
Correct.
हमारे काम में नहीं हो सकता है. We are designers are not meant to do that. And फिर भी हम सोचते हैं कि हम will leave a mark behind. How can you leave a mark behind? You shouldn't. Because the moment it becomes your work, then it's no longer theirs. And what you're producing is to make theirs. Authenticity lies for them. It's not your authenticity.
Correct.
Right? तो आप बना रहे हो उनके लिए, उनको अपनाने के लिए, उनके लिए पूरा का पूरा. So this is a good example for me to explain about how that it is about creating work which people make it their own. लोग अपनाते हैं, लोग वहाँ पे जिस संतर कर्तव्य पर जाते हैं तो बोले ये मेरा है, ये हमारा है. They cannot in their wildest dream say ये लोपेज का है. सपने में भी नहीं, भयंकर सपने में भी नहीं आ सकता है वो.
Correct.
And that understanding needs to be clear with us. और अगर वो अंडरस्टैंडिंग क्लियर है तो हमारा दृष्टि बदल जाता है कि हम किस हिसाब से हम हमारा काम अप्रोच करते हो.
So why it is critical?
So with this entire if I can use the word discourse on Central Vista or Kartavya Path project, all I can say is that design is not of what we create, is what survives us. And this for me is an important statement to make, because I think it should not be about me or about us in that sense as a studio. It's about what will survive us beyond us, right? And thereby the success of what we do or the commissioning of what we do is so critical, right? Because it's a survival process of anything, right? Great ideas come in abundance, but very few survive.
Survives, yeah.
Yeah.
Very true.
And that longevity, and that is what Kartavya Path project has. It has got a longevity beyond my lifespan. Yeah,
True.
and that's the opportunity.
Yes.
That's the chance which we got. And I speak with it with a lot of greatness because of that injection what we put inside, right?
Anthony, now I'll ask a few questions related to your forum that you have been doing. I think you are doing a great job. That forum is a very interesting forum, and I find myself and my company lucky to be associated with few of them. While listening to your forum, at one of the forum, I heard a very interesting thing that you mentioned, that Indian design is layered, adaptive, and alive. Yet I see that most of the companies, they are wanting to copy the Western design. They don't want to, they find Indian design very weak. Why does that happen, and how do you address to that?
That's a very interesting question, and I don't remember that quote which you're quoting me. But I think it's not about design, it's about everything in Indian and in what Indians do at large, right, in that sense. So I'll just talk a little bit about this statement. And also a little bit, if you can remind me about why we do that, in that sense.
No, I'm just connecting these two. You said that Indian designs are adaptive, layers,
Designers, right? Yeah.
alive. Yet, why are we copying the foreign design? Why can't
No,
we
because I think first of all, our influence has been very strong, right? So the Western, and I'm using the term Western in this, but economies which are very powerful are dominant economies,
Right.
and they make sure that that dominance stays and is imposed on weaker economies. And that's basically a concept of commerce, a concept of trade, which basically is meant to make you like what they think is great, and because it's a trade thing, so what they can make you can buy.
Correct.
And you may want. So that's a want aspect which they build
Demand and
in
supply.
people, right? Yeah, demand and supply. It's what the Britishers did for us for 200 years. They said, तुम लोग निकम्मे हैं और ये गोरा चमड़ा असली चमड़ा है and बाकी सब बेकार है.
Yes.
ठीक है? And we all did हाँ जी and हाँ साहब with them, and we were forced to do that because we were constantly mentally put down as a race and a community and a culture which was poor in nature, right? In that sense, and there was a superior race, and that that psychology of that thing is not only there with India but all places which were ruled by colonial rule, right? In that sense, so we have that burden in us, and it is not easy to get it out, right? And also the overall dictum of what is great and what is good and what is really fine, right? It's been defined by these economies of the West, right? In that
The
sense.
powerful economy.
Yes,
Yeah.
they are saying this is fantastic design, right? And then we buy into that fantastic design in this thing. We have not created an alternative for ourselves or for the world in that. So that's where I believe that the power lies in India, which is so rich, so powerful in its richness, that it can give back to the world at equal measure.
So, ये भी घर से dare to be Indian.
Dare to be truly Indian, as I would say, because there are many types of India, and you see, doesn't mean you don't see quote unquote Indian design around, right? In that sense, so you see a lot of it, and it's emerging, right? But one cannot deny that nothing is happening in this area. There is lots and lots of work happening in this area, right? But it needs to jump out of the surface, and it is not that it's not jumping out of the surface. You can see it in bits and pieces. A massive amount of great work happening with Indian design influencing the West, right? In that sense, the reverse flip. But it needs to happen as an economy, as everything what we do as a country, as our entire infrastructure development, right?
Correct.
Because there is billions and billions of dollars, if not rupees, being spent on developing the country.
Correct.
Right? And it's Indians putting that money into itself to create greatness. Right? And it's just greatness for what? To serve its people, right? And at the end of the day. And at that point of time, we can infuse things inside it which will take India forward and yet be Indian in nature. So India does not mean, being Indian does not mean going to the past or being in the past.
True. Very true.
Right?
But the reason why I put this question to you, that I know that by heart we all are true Indian and we love our country, we love our culture. But when it comes to economy, business, we don't trust our inheritance. We try and copy what foreign countries are doing. That's why I put this question to you.
No, I think that's because, I probably do not know the exact reason why. In context to innovation is not owned by us. Right? And Jugaad is owned by us, right? And there's a reason why I say Jugaad is owned by us. It's because we have come out of, say, a situation when we gained independence, that we were in a poor state as a state, right? In that sense. And thereby, from there to uplift ourselves, we had to do a lot of things to uplift ourselves as citizens and as a state also, right? In that sense. And that's why that growth has been of make-do perspective, not reinvent ourselves. Right? And thereby, we had to borrow from others to do that, both conceptually, strategically, and in funds in the initial phases, right? So, for us to be turning those tables into a society which can innovate for itself is a haul. It's a long haul. And that needs to happen in a very, it requires certain type of mindsets to be able to do that. And thereby then we can become an innovating country. Right?
And what was the objective of starting this forum? Because I have seen people from varied background, artist, innovator, thinker, bureaucrats also.
Because, I work a lot. I work about 16 hours a day minimum, and it's I would not encourage people to do that, so I don't go out and I don't interact with people as much as one should interact, right? And I think it's very important that you don't stay in your own little pond thinking aap is pond ke raja ho. It's not going to do any good to you or anything what you do. Right? And so I said, instead of going out, and which you have to go out, and Delhi to bahut dur hai, all the pass mein, it takes a lot of time and effort. So I said, let me bring the world to me. Very self-centered need for me. That how am I going to meet with great people if I don't go out and meet them? And so I bring them in, right? So that's the very, very top secret reason why we started the forum. It was a need which I felt that if I don't do that, I will be under the false assumption that whatever I'm thinking and doing is right.
No, you may call it self-centered or whatever, but it was a very objective based.
Yeah.
I guess world, whosoever who's listening to those forums, there are a lot of takeaways. I have gone through multiple times.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Mr. Amitabh Kant wala episode jo tha.
Yes.
I've gone through that at least 3 times. I've gone through that.
No, and I think a lot of people came in, really, really great people came in for that particular forum in particular.
Yeah.
But the idea about us getting different minds together in a space to talk to each other. So if we get about, say, 7 speakers, then 7 speakers are not talking to an audience, they're talking to the other 6 speakers.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right? Yeah. And the forum is basically, incidentally, a closed forum. That means only past speakers are allowed, and the only people privileged to join that forum is my own team.
Yeah.
They get a free ticket.
You allowed me as well.
You also. No, that's because you have been generous and be a sponsor to us, right, in that sense. And of course, this requires sponsorship also. But the idea is about creating this pool of people who are diverse as thinkers, diverse as professions. And because I think that every profession thinks in a certain way, and that's what they bring into the table, right, onto the table, the thinking, the way of seeing things differently, right, and that's the power of each profession. But when you bring all of them together, then there is a third power which is created, right? And I think for us as people who are sponges, it informs us wonderfully, right? And for them to be understanding that hey, a large part of our life is spent in our own domain, talking to our own people, listening to our own voices, that we need to listen to other voices.
True.
Other perspectives, right? And they come from different domains also, besides our own domain with different perspectives.
I agree with you. Ladies and gentlemen, so far we have had a very interesting conversation with Anthony Lopez, and I guess he has been very natural and honest with all the answers that he has been giving to us, and I think we should stretch this conversation to episode 2 also, because this is going to be a very interesting conversation. I have a lot of questions to ask him. It is really very difficult to catch hold of him. That's why I want to stress this to the episode 2. Stay tuned, watch episode 2, and I'm sure you will like the content. The core message today was really very simple. Don't imitate, originate. And I think Anthony has lived that truth for 30 years better than most. If this episode moved you, challenged you, or made you think, please do share it with a colleague, a student, a creative friend. That's honestly the best way you can support Behind the Brief. Let the conversation travel further than this screen. And of course, like, subscribe, and follow us so you never miss an episode. Leave your comment below. I read every single one, and your feedback is what shapes this show. Until then, keep questioning the brief, keep pushing for the truth behind it. I'm Anup Verma. This was Behind the Brief. See you in the next one. Thank you so much.